I really want to welcome you to this webinar, and it's a great pleasure to have all of you on board. And it's about matching demand and supply in the beans and pulse sector. So thank you very much for attending today, and we're looking forward to a very fruitful, interactive session. So we will be together coming hour and a half. Could you go to next slide, please? So today's webinar, it's important that you know that we can't see or hear you. However, we have a very active possibility for you to be able to ask a lot of questions to our speakers, and also use the chat function where you can make comments, suggestions, or anything that you would like to share with the whole group. So you can use the two panels on the right side. Next slide. So what we will be doing today, first in part 1, Michel Peperkamp will give a summary of the import of export of pulses and the trends and the requirements. In part 2, we will have 2 speakers, and there's a lot of opportunity for you to ask questions to those 2 speakers. In part 3, we also will be needing your input, because we will talk about the strengths and weaknesses in the pulse sector in producing countries. And here we're very interested to understand what are your challenges, what are your requests. So who is CBI? CBI is the Center for Promoting Imports. We are funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we actually are doing 3 things. One, it's that we are supporting market access for companies, so from Africa, Asia, and MENA region to import and export to the EU or other regions. Secondly, we have projects in sector transition where we are supporting in quality changes, we're supporting in improvements in sustainability. And thirdly, we also provide market intelligence. So on our website, you can find a lot of studies, among also studies on pulses and grains. So I would like to introduce our expert panel for today. So we will have our guest speaker, Michel Peperkamp. He is our market intelligence expert. Michel, could you maybe share a few words about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yes, my name is Michel Peperkamp. I've been working with CBI for the last, I think, 7 years or so. And I mainly work in the sector of grains, pulses, fruit and vegetables. So I help companies doing business in the European market, helping them to comply to the requirements, but also help them to connect to potential buyers. And for CBI, I also am responsible for most of the market intelligence for grains and pulses.
Thank you. May I invite Henk van Leeuwen from Cogeser? Could you introduce yourself? We cannot hear you yet, Henk, if you're on mute. Otherwise, Mark, can I ask you to introduce yourself? No worries, there will be room for you to speak later on. For the people that are in and attending the meeting, please write down in the chat function like who you are, like from which country. Are you an exporter, a consultant, a research institute? We're very keen to hear from you as well, and to see where you come from. So please use this opportunity to use the chat pane. So without further ado, let's now move on to the first part of this webinar, which will be about the market analysis. So Michel, I'm very keen to hear more from you, and for everyone, you feel free to ask questions because we can take a couple of questions after this first part. Please go ahead, Michel.
Okay, thank you, Lauke. I'll put on my camera as well so you can see me at the same time. So yes, I wanted to start with a couple of trends in the grains and pulses. Basically, the main trends I would like to show you is that pulses are at the moment really focused on health, local and organic. So let me explain this a little bit further for you. First of all, China has been a huge supplier of pulses to Europe, but lately Europe is moving away from China actually for different reasons. So in China, a lot of people are moving to the cities, so there's less production. They supply more their local market as well, but there's also a point of reputation. A lot of European buyers, they start preferring other origins than China, and there's really a preference for local production. This is backed by policies in Europe that try to motivate producers in Europe as well to produce more pulses. So there's more opportunities for other origins, mainly for European origins, but of course Europe is not self-sufficient. So we still need other origins to get our pulses.
Michel, could you, sorry to interrupt, could you maybe go and make your screen very big?
This is the biggest I can make it.
Because we can see 2 slides on the screen, but we like to see the trends section. So if you could make it a bit bigger.
Let me see how I can do that, because I have no idea.
So in the slideshow, you show maybe again the slideshow and make it bigger.
I can duplicate it. No. Oh, I need a little bit help with that because I'm not sure if I can.
So Michel, maybe you could start again. So maybe open your screen again with the PowerPoints. So Michel, maybe close it and start again.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's no, still the same.
Maybe if I. To be honest, I have no idea. Sorry for that. Let us continue because I've.
Okay, let's continue. Yes, let's continue.
Okay. Okay. I try to. Maybe this is. Yes, I got it. Yeah. Apologies. So where was I? Anyway, there's more local focus on local production. It's seen as more sustainable. The other thing is health. So protein crops are really well, growers in Europe are motivated to grow these protein crops. Plant protein is also seen as being a healthy food. So that is really interesting for the people that are focusing more on health food, which is also linked to organic pulses. So there's a trend for more organic food, which means there's also more demand for organic pulses. Meanwhile, at the same time, the restrictions, the requirements are becoming stricter. So as a supplier, you need to comply with all kinds of certifications and food safety to ensure that your food is actually a healthy crop and safe for consumption. That having said, nevertheless, there's a big potential market in Europe. There's a diversifying. It is a diversifying market we have a lot of different ethnicities in Europe. So basically, for most of the pulses, you can find some type of opportunity, either small or big. So let's look at the import of pulses at the moment in Europe. If you see this graph, you can see that kidney beans, peas, and lentils are the biggest imports pulses. Kidney beans is probably the most interesting for African countries. It's something that we do not produce in Europe, unlike peas and lentils. Those are produced in Europe. Chickpeas has been growing as well, a growing value. So that's an interesting product as well, but it fluctuates a lot, so it can be risky as well. Of course, India is a big influencer in the chickpea trade. And of course, there are some niche products such as Atsuki beans and mung beans that are slowly increasing as well. But overall, if you see the history, there is a growing line of imports. This is import by Europe from different kinds of supplying countries. If we look at the supply countries for as in developing countries, then we see that Egypt, Ethiopia, and Myanmar are by far the biggest developing countries supplying the European market. But there are all kinds of other smaller suppliers, mainly in Central and Eastern Africa, that supply the European market. But the volumes are much less. And there should be a lot more potential for African suppliers of pulses, because if you look at the production in these countries, then you see, well, like I said, in Central Africa and Eastern Africa, there's a lot of production, but also in Asia, in Myanmar, which is by far the biggest producer of dry beans. Looking at the export potential, Myanmar, like I said, is by far the biggest producer. So also the biggest exporter in general compared to all the other countries. But we have to consider the fact that Myanmar is a big supplier to China as well. So therefore, Egypt, Ethiopia, Madagascar are relatively better positioned for the European market, which you could see in the other graph. So Myanmar is not the only supplier of beans to Europe. And a big part of it is actually it's mung beans as well from Myanmar. So if you talk with different importers in Europe, you can hear different countries with potential. Importers mentioned Ethiopia, Myanmar, Egypt, and Madagascar as potential suppliers. Ethiopia, of course, for the navy beans, but also kidney beans. Myanmar is market leader in mung beans. Egypt can also compete in faba beans, which is also produced widely in and around Europe. And Madagascar for all kinds of different kinds of beans, bean varieties. But really important to notice is that a lot of buyers in Europe, they do not have a specific preference for a country. So they basically say that any country that has a reliable supply and the right variety, the right quality, they could compete on the European market. So also countries like Tanzania, like Uganda, like Kenya, they can all put their mark in the European market. You have to be sure that your product is compliant. The origin is less important. Talking about the type of product with potential.
Misha, could you go one slide back, please? Wonderful. We get in some interesting questions. So I think first of all, I think it's great that this overview shows there is potential for the different pulses, and also the suppliers of the importers showed that they're interested, in particular the one that are behind the countries. There was, however, a drop in 2019 in Europe. Do you have any idea why there was a drop in 2019?
That was the other slide, yes. Well, it can be different reasons, because these graphs are based on statistics, and the statistics, they tend to be corrected over time as well. So you should not be surprised if you update these statistics in maybe 6 months, then they might be a slightly higher. The other reason, it depends a little bit on the products, but of course we depend on the local production within Europe. We depend on different pricing. So if prices go down, the value also goes down, obviously.
Okay.
If there's a lot of production, the import volume is still the same in Europe, but the value, the overall value, may go down a little. So those are factors that can influence the statistics. And
Thank you.
I would recommend you to look at the statistics over a longer period of time instead of year by year, because the year by year can fluctuate due to the reasons I just mentioned.
Thank you, Michel. There was a question about Fonio, but I would like to refer you. We have also a webinar about Fonio, Marianne, so please have a look there. And another question was coming in regarding sustainability, but that's something we will discuss in the third part. A questioning comes in from Esmail. He's saying, our company is working on the export of pulses, oilseeds, but we have trouble finding the right people to present our products. So I think, Esmail, when we hear more from the two speakers, I will also ask them a couple of questions, how they are looking for new suppliers. So we will answer this one. So Michel, maybe it's good that you're sharing the final slide of this first part, which is the interesting slides.
So I asked several buyers in Europe what kind of pulses would be interesting to them. Talking about developing countries, of course. And one of the first products they mentioned was alubia beans, like the big white beans, because there are only few suppliers, and if supply is down, for example, in Argentina, then they might look for other origins. So this has to do with availability. Kidney beans is probably the most potential bean for developing countries. These are, like I mentioned, not as much produced in Europe, but more in tropical regions. And there's generally a large demand. But of course, you have all kinds of different kidney bean varieties. But if you talk, for example, about dark red kidney beans, those are one of the bigger categories. Some smaller niches are, for example, Atsuki and mung beans. Although these are niche products, they are slowly increasing in volume in Europe. So I put them in my positive list. If you look at other products, navy beans is a huge product. Of course, it comes from Ethiopia, quite a lot imported from Ethiopia by European buyers. But there's a strong supply from these usual suppliers, so it might be difficult to enter this market as a new supplier. Chickpeas is quite interesting. There's a lot of demand for chickpeas, but also a very strong competition, which is dominated, especially by India. But if you manage to grow really good quality and large-sized chickpeas, you still might have a good opportunity in Europe. Other products like black-eyed peas or cowpeas, they're called as well. It's also a niche product, and more for the ethnic market. And it's probably the same for processed pulses like split pulses, dal, or flour, which is probably a product that ends up earlier in the ethnic channels. The products I would focus on a little bit less coming from developing countries are lentils, because they're typically grown in Europe as well. And Canada is a main supplier to Europe of lentils. Turkey and the wet lentils as well. So that will be a difficult market to enter. Not impossible, but it will be challenging. And pigeon peas, those are really niche until today. And there's also a high risk of weevils, small insects. And of course, the common green peas, those are also massively produced in Europe, especially France, I believe, is really quite large in peas. So those are the products which is probably less opportunistic for developing countries. I have the last slide about the requirements. Like the requirements are becoming stricter and stricter, and food safety is the single most important requirement for pulses. And if you talk about food safety, you talk about we call that HACCP, which is identifying the risks in your supply chain, all the food safety risks. So you need to have some type of certification that ensures buyers that you're compliant in food safety. But also other aspects are important: traceability, the all kinds of treatments for pulses, fumigation, sterilization. Other aspects quite important are quality, of course, especially consistency. So quality can be good today, but it has to be the same tomorrow. This cannot deviate too much. And you have to supply your products according to the specifications of your buyer. It's something which is common for a lot of buyers to have a reliable supplier. But if you have a multiple year focus, you need to focus on the long term, and you need to be a reliable supplier. Other things, the right variety, like I said, for canning can be quite different than for dry pulses. Size can be of importance. The color retention. So you know, if the bean is cooked and canned, will it maintain its color or not? All those aspects can be important. Social and environmental certification is becoming more and more important as well. Basically, you have to see it like this: food safety opens the first door. A second door will be social and environmental certifications. So it's not the most crucial, but it becomes more and more important for certain markets. And last but not least, the organic market, like I said, it's a growing niche, and organic integrity is one of the main focus points to supply the organic market. But luckily, we have one organic buyer as well in our midst.
Wonderful. Michel, there are two questions for you, and please answer them just really brief as possible. First of all, we could see that India is not part of, let's say, the analysis. And secondly, people also interested about the legal requirements. So maybe if you could briefly reflect on both of questions.
Yeah, I have not included India because it's in certain pulses like chickpeas. India is definitely dominant, but I really wanted to focus on new developing countries and show their opportunities in this business. Of course, if you want to know a little bit more about the global supply, also from India, also other countries, I would advise you to go to the website of CBI and open different market studies, and there you will see the complete overview of the pulses market and their suppliers. Second, the legal requirements. Like I said, legal requirements. The most important legal requirement, or the most important requirement in general, is food safety. And we will focus on that a little bit more later as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Michel, and we will hear much more from you in the third part. So may I introduce Henk from Cogizer to speak? Could you maybe show yourself, Henk, that we can hear you?
Trying to find out how that works.
Well, we can already hear your voice. That's wonderful.
Okay, that's fine. I have a mobile version, so I'm not sure if it is getting me on the screen as well.
Well, then, if you don't manage to, let's say, turn on your webcam, then I propose that we can hear you. I think that's also wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Well, thank you.
so yeah. So, Henk, can you please share a bit about yourself and about Cogizer? Like, why do you work in Pulses and where do you source from?
Okay. Cogecer, we say in French, Cogesser in English. It depends on how you pronounce. We are brokers and specialized in international trade of pulses, really worldwide. We have our basis market in Europe, and we work to North Africa. We work to certain countries closely to in the Mediterranean, and as well as to the Indian subcontinent. We put into contact exporters and importers in both ways, and we do our broker business and our activity, finding the right offers, or finding the right buyers, and assist during the entire process of exporting, payments, etc., and all kinds of questions which comes along. I am in this business since 1990. We have a small brokerage company, but yeah, we are present since 1980. So in the pulses world, we source our pulses from all major production areas in the world. Of course, Canada and USA are important. We also source from Ethiopia, mainly white beans and some kidney beans as well. Of course, Europe, Turkey. We source from South America, Argentina, Chile. We have been doing a lot of business out of China. We have not still there, but it has become now a net importer. And we import and export also from India and other subcontinent countries. So I think in a nutshell, that's about our activity.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're very interested, and we get some questions in that say, how do you look for new suppliers, or how do you decide if you start to source from a new origin? Like, how does that work in your business?
Well, first of all, many people are at least in this business are very traditional, and they stick to what they know, in fact. And it must be said that Europe has relatively high quality requirements, and if the price difference from other origins is interesting enough for them to try a replacement, then they will consider that. But of course, the beans must have the same, the beans or the pulses in general must have the same characteristics as where they buy it from normally. How we source, it's a matter of prospection. We go to different international organizations, and it's a lot of hand-to-mouth information via that you source people.
Okay, so that's good to know that it's quite, let's say, closed markets. But we could also hear, like from the overview that Michel showed, that there is still interest in, for instance, kidneys, which have, let's say, the right color coming from some countries like Uganda. Could you maybe mention, let's say, what are your most, let's say, interested pulses where you see a big demand coming from, and where you're interested maybe to open up, let's say, new supply from other countries?
Yeah, well, I think that there are big potentials for dark red kidney beans, which are a little bit long, shapish red beans. We have two markets. There is a canning market and there is a packaging market, and the quality requirements are not the same. For packaging, they need to have a nice look, But if they lose color during cooking, and that's not such a big problem. However, if it's for the canning industry, then the color must stay nice and red, and the beans must stay intact after cooking and canning. Those are the major characteristics. I think there are other interesting markets for example, black eye beans. There is a good market in the Middle East, for example. We do quite a lot of black eyed beans, mainly from Madagascar and Peru. It would be very nice if there are alternatives. White beans, of course, remains interesting. We do a lot of Ethiopian pea beans mainly, which have good quality. Right now, Ethiopian exporters, they manage to well control the quality and also insect infestation and so on. They manage to do a good job on the fumigation. But okay, there are years in which it's a much bigger problem than in other years. I think it's just because of it's a natural product, and nature does what they do, so it's not always controllable. Other beans, I think there is in general there is demand for alternative supplies, definitely, and I think that the major issue from African countries would be the control of pests. I mean, insect damage, which is very important, which I see as one of the major difficulties for them to manage. It's a warm area in the world, and mainly in those areas, weevil damage is an issue. Besides that, of course, Europe has certain fumigation requirements. Maybe I think that there also will be some reactions on that later on. But there is a residue issue, the pesticides issue, but also residues of fumigations problem. Products is a very important inquiry for European importers.
Thank you so much. Then maybe one question for you, and then we move on to the second speaker. It's about about the EU Green Deal. We can hear of a lot, of course, that now there's more need for local buying. There's need for traceability, which is easier if you procure it from the EU. Like, what would be your recommendation or maybe your opinion about this?
Well, we see a net tendency within Europe to favor local European production. However, it's not always possible. I mean, price-wise, that there are always origins which are considerably cheaper. And if they can meet the overall rules for imports, then people will certainly look after that. But I think, yes, there is definitely a movement into European consumers favor European products. But honestly speaking, today, I think of the entire, I don't know, 10-20% at maximum. So there is still a lot of room for imports from other origins.
It's very good to know. Actually, before we move on, we still have a very interesting question coming in from Jacques Swery. He's asking, there are a lot of quality criteria depending on the variety. Is the variety name really considered in your transactions, in your procurements?
No, not really. No, we talk about the global bean. For example, we have dark red kidney beans, and there are different varieties which are regularly replaced by newer and better ones. So we don't really talk about varieties.
Okay, thank you so much. Great. So yeah, if you can stay on the line, would still be great because there are still questions coming in. But let's move on to Mark from Trade Organic. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is it also possible that we can see you?
Yes, I think it is. Let me try. Should be on now. Yes.
Absolutely. So then I switched myself off. But then, yeah, then I give you the floor. We're very keen to hear more about Tradin Organic and how actually how do you procure your pulses and what's important for Tradin to source from new origins.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So yes, I'm Mark, working for the company Tradin Organic. As the name already says, we only source organic ingredients. A little bit more about Tradin Organic. We are, let's say, the global front runner in organic ingredients. We have multiple offices worldwide, from which we offer a full service portfolio with unique sourcing and sustainability initiatives, and also distribution capabilities. So what we basically do is we don't only buy the ingredients, but we try to maintain the organic integrity by also going to the source itself. So we have multiple projects worldwide from which we source ourselves from the source to the customer. This doesn't count for all products, but this is something we are working on, and that we are trying to achieve for all our main crops. Of course, this is about pulses. I'm not very long in the business, a little more than 2 years. And in our company, we distinguish 3 different categories within the pulse portfolio, and that are chickpeas, lentils, and beans. From which, as already mentioned in the beginning, the chickpeas are sourced more nearby Europe. So, for example, France. But the majority from us, we get it from Turkey, since we started the project last year, from which we source Turkish chickpeas and lentils. And looking at the beans, we mainly, in the past, the majority was coming from China. But because recent developments such as bad crop, but also long delivery times and quite expensive products, and also because of the fact that there are good alternatives entering the market, such as beans from Africa. We are now we are distinguishing ourselves with more origins. So looking at the beans, we get the red beans from China, but now also from Ethiopia. The white beans also from China, but Kyrgyzstan as well. And the navy beans, the pea beans, we get them all from Ethiopia. The black turtle beans, also Ethiopia. So looking at Africa, the continent, we mainly get the beans from Ethiopia, but are also interested, of course, in other countries. So I think in a nutshell, this is what we do and what our portfolio of pulses looks like. So if there are any questions, please ask.
Yeah, wonderful, Mark. We get a question in. Actually, could you share a bit more? How does it work if you are looking for a new supplier? Like, what do you ask the supplier to provide you? Do they need to send a sample to you? Do you have, let's say, a 1-hour conversation with them? What do you need actually from their side?
Yeah, there are like multiple things that we ask. Like to start with, looking at organic, of course, certain certificates are quite important. To start with the organic European certificate. And it depends also to what countries we would like to sell, because for the US, there's a different certificate needed, the NOP one. But also food safety certificates such as IFS are really important. Sometimes social other standards such as CRAF. Kosher can be one, but also the product specification, of course, because we have high quality standards in terms of, let's say, outsort. But also the flow chart is important to see how the product is processed. Because of course there are a few steps in order to clean the product. But for example, when looking at the production line and there's a certain machine missing, we can question ourselves whether the end product will be will be of the quality that we are looking for. So that are like the indications, that are important for us to start working with a certain supplier. and when. Well, what is the reason when we are looking for a new supplier? It can be when there are problems in the origins that we mainly source from, but also because of of prices that can be more competitive in other regions. So that's it. I think that covers the question, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. And then regarding, let's say, the sample size, like do they need to send a sample to you that you can really test it, and do they need to process it or parboiled, or what do you need to receive from them?
Yeah, we have a sourcing team. So sometimes, when it gets really interesting, we send somebody of our sourcing team to the specific country to check for themselves. We also work with certain surveying companies, which we ask to draw the sample. Because of course we also ask for a sample, but you never know if it's representative for let's say the whole batch. Of course, it's logically, but everybody sends their best sample. So in order to know that it's representative for the whole lot, we do it like this.
Yep. Okay, very good to know that you also have, let's say, local representatives, or you need to take a sample size. There's a question coming in regarding contract farming from Yixa. Do you also do, let's say, contract farmer to really get the control of the organic production, and how does that work?
Yes, we definitely do. Normally, when we do it's because of the volume. Let's say that we have big demand for a certain product, and we find a supplier that can just offer a small quantity of the whole inquiry. Then we would like to lock the whole volume. So that's when we start with contract farming, but also when for example, when we are looking for a long-term relationship, and this supplier also asks for our help in order to reach the right standards, then we also might decide to do the contract farming and to look for a long-term relationship. So that are like the two major reasons why we would do it.
And then, Mark, a bit looking in the future, like there's increase of demands in pulses and organic pulses as well. Like, what's your strategy to really boost the production around the globe?
Yes, we are more focused on B2B. So I would say, to reach the consumers, it are more our customers that are doing this. But of course, we are like I said in the beginning. Now we want to diversify our portfolio also with the products that we offer, but also with the origins. Because if the demand is increasing for organic pulses, then we also need the right volumes on the supply side. And to achieve this, we cannot rely on just one source. So we need, let's say, everybody on board to reach those demand levels.
Okay, but if I understand you well, you don't partner, let's say, with a big donor or let's say a very big producing country to really boost the scale of production of organic supply.
No. So sometimes when, for example, when we experience problems for a certain product for a long period, then we are looking for another partner. And if we find the right partner, but we see, there are certain things that this supplier should improve, and they ask our help to do this, then we can indeed decide, we are going to devote more funds and time in this to reach this, this standards. And then we are indeed aiming for those levels.
Thank you. A few more questions are coming in, so thanks. Regarding, let's say, social standards, do you also have a particular, let's say, social standard that you think it's very good, it's really raising the level of income for farmers or for women?
Yes, for pulses we see the CRAF as a social standard that is asked more lately. It's especially really, let's say, famous in Scandinavia. Another one is, I would say, Natuurland, which is a German standard that is asked, especially by German customers. So I think those two, looking at pulses, are quite important. Fair trade or something is something that I don't see. So yeah, answering your question about the fair wages. But CRAF also has a certain parameter that also focuses a little bit on fair waging, but it's not the same as fair trade. So I would say CRAF and Natuurland.
Yeah, wonderful. Maybe let me take two more questions. If you select a supplier, do you want, let's say, a trader or a processor, or can it also be a large farmer?
Yes, it can be all of them. When working with a trader, they normally, because we want to be in control of the whole supply chain, we prefer to work with a farmer or local authority that is representative for this specific farm or farmers. But it can be all of them. Sometimes we have a demand which is quite urgent. And then sometimes working with a trader is let's say safer and is faster. But normally we prefer, when we have the time and the capabilities, to work with a company really far back in the supply chain.
Thank you. Then maybe the final question I take for this round is, actually, what are the major criteria for you to say it's really organic? Like, of course, we know there's a certificate needed, but what does it really mean, growing organic? It's a question coming in from Isaiah.
Yeah, good one. There are like two different parameters that are included in the terminology organic, and that are it has to be free from pesticides. And also there is no GMO allowed, so genetic modified organism. So the official terminology is based on those two parameters. So no GMO and no pesticides.
Thank you. Very good. And of course, there's also a lot written down about organic, what it really is. Mark, I really want to thank you. Henk, maybe we also really want to thank you. Maybe Henk, for you, do you have any maybe recommendations for all the exporters that we have here? Any recommendation that you give them to look in the future what they should really improve in their company?
Yes, a very good question. I think that they should pay a lot of attention to the fact that they really control pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, and all that. That is really, really important if they want to, not only if they want to export to Europe, but also more and more non-European countries are having more and more demand for, of course, that the cargo or the product is in conformity with the health safety rules, etc. And of course, with a good weevil control. Insects is very important, and that then they have to take care that on arrival of the cargo in Europe or wherever, that there are no residues of fumigants present in the container, because that gives another complications and more costs, because containers needs to be transported into special dedicated areas to be opened and aired, and there's much more expenses which generally importers will try to get back from the exporter.
Thank you so much. Very clear. It's so I think, I really want to thank both of you for spending the time to share your insights on how you procure your pulses. For everyone, we will be recording this session, and as well, we provide all the slides, and a lot of information is coming your way. So I would suggest let's move on to the third part, where I give Michel again the floor to share more about the strengths and weaknesses. And then I also really would like to have your inputs to understand what is holding back your supply, your country, what's holding back you to exports. So Michel, maybe if you can spend let's say 10 minutes on your part, and then I open the floor for a lot of questions.
Okay, yeah. It's a short resume maybe of the things we have spoken about. I wanted to share with you some strengths and weaknesses that we identified in developing countries, in particular tropical Africa. And the main problems here, I think Henk already mentioned some of these as well. The main problem here are the climate, but also the small farm size. So most problems we encounter, or most difficulties, are related to these two factors. The hot climate means that there is more risk of weevils. It's a difficult problem to control. The way it is controlled is often by using excessive pesticides, which raises the residue levels. And by doing this, it becomes not compliant anymore to the European market regulation. So it's a difficult problem. On one side, you have to keep pesticides down as low as possible, but on the other hand, the weevil infestation is a serious risk in these countries due to the climate. So that's one of the main issues. The other difficulty I would see is a lot of farms in Africa are relatively small if you compare those, for example, with farms in Canada or in Argentina. I think the farm size is quite a bit smaller in Africa. But this also means that it becomes more difficult to deliver a consistent quality and have quality control over so many different farms, and making sure that the traceability of the product is well managed. So if there is a problem, your buyer needs to know exactly where the product came from to identify the actual problem. Traceability, quality management, it becomes more difficult if you work with a lot of small farms. That having said, that you can use some of these aspects also as a strength. First of all, coming from a small farm or working with a community, you can try to use storytelling, promoting your local community together with the product you are selling. So that may be a small plus, which is not for every buyer in Europe, but there may be buyers out there that do care about showing the story of the producer. Other aspect is, of course, price. Like Henk said as well, Europe is not always the most competitive region for its pulses, in spite of the many subsidies there are for the agricultural production. And you could try to differentiate as well in price for your products, and at the same time become an alternative source to China, which is actually becoming less. So there are some opportunities to show a little bit more maybe about the opportunities. I think organic cultivation can be an opportunity as well, but there's a big question mark there. If it's feasible in tropical African regions, because of course the more tropical the region, the more difficult it will become to really produce organic. The advantage is working in a small farm. It's usually easier to produce organically than on a really big large-scale farm. So on one side, it will be difficult for companies to compete with large-scale operations, but then in organic, that may be different because you're more focused on a small plot. Basic processing and cleaning could be an interesting thing to investigate as well, because what I see is that a lot of products do not come directly to Europe, but they make like a stopover, for example, in Egypt or Turkey, where they are processed or graded or selected, or they get a sterilization process. So there the products are selected that are compliant for the European market and that are suitable for the European markets. But you can take that process back to the origin, to the producing country. If you manage to be to process your product, to grade and select your product, to make sure that it's fully clean, maybe sterilized if required by your buyer, then you can actually export your product directly to Europe instead of Turkey, Egypt, where part of the products are shipped to Europe, which are compliant. So that can be an interesting thing to investigate. Like I said, promoting local communities. So you use the social impact as your unique selling point. If you show that your local community is actually benefiting from the trade, then it can be an additional buying point for your buyer. And last but not least, focus on the right pulses. Best products are the products that are difficult to grow in other countries, or that have low availability. So buyers start looking for other alternatives. And some of the products that we mentioned already, like the dark red kidney beans. So focus on the right variety, and maybe the specific variety is not mentioned, but the quality is, and the aspects of your products are definitely important. And this you really have to discuss with different buyers and see how they evaluate your specific product. So the basics for starting your trade. It's really important to realize that buyers need a specific motivation to accept a new supplier. First of all, the cost of switching is high, but I think Henk made a really good point as well, that it's a really traditional market in which buyers stick with the things they know. So they stick with the countries they know. They know Ethiopia, so they buy in Ethiopia. But it doesn't mean there are opportunities in other countries. But they need to get a motivation to switch to another supply country, to another supplier. And you have to give them that motivation, give them that reason as well. Also, there needs to be a current experience in the production of a certain product. It's really hard to start from nothing, to start from scratch and build something up which you do not have already established. So it's really important to come from your own strength, your own production. What do you have? Evaluate what you have and build from there. And that's the third point I wanted to mention as well. Become an attractive option for buyers. First of all, you have to be compliant to the food safety regulation. You have to have the right quality. You have to be competitive. And you have to be reliable. If you focus on all those points, and you really become an attractive option for a European buyer, that will increase your chances quite a lot. So these 3 points. I think these are basic takeaways I wanted to share with you in my last slides.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michel, and I think a great summary at the end as well. We got some questions are coming in though. There are, for instance, also on the varieties. Did you see any, let's say, research ongoing also by traders, buyers that also are working on improving or working with different varieties?
And I think there have been several examples. I don't know all the individual examples, of course, but I do know that the specific quality of a variety can be important. I believe there have been trials as well. I think it was Ethiopia. I know the company Pedon, an Italian company, has been quite active there. And there has been several investigations in varieties, different varieties of white beans, and not all the varieties are suitable for the type of buyers that you will see in Europe. So I would recommend really to check what kind of product you have, and involve the potential buyer in evaluating your products. Show them your product and see what it does, what happens when you cook it, like color, does it fall apart or not? And this will determine your best market channel as well, and determine if there are actually potential buyers in Europe. But you really have to do this with your potential buyer. I don't know, maybe maybe Henk or Mark can say a little bit more about really specific varieties or qualities.
Yeah, so maybe if and in between, while we're actually having our discussion, can I invite everyone to write in the chat box to really mention what are your key barriers to export pulses and beans? So I can already see a lot of comments coming in. I can, for instance, see Ethiopia, the ECX is a challenge, or local price is increasing. I can see challenges is indeed how to get quality control. Certification from Europe is a challenge. Quite some challenge coming in for standards. I also get a question indeed about organic. Maybe if Henk or Mark, maybe still interested to hear from you. Like, do you also still work on any research projects on any pulses or grains? That you maybe, for instance, work on a more resistant pulse, or do you know from other traders or your association in Europe that is working on a research regarding, let's say, pest-resistant varieties or pulses that need less water to grow? Mark or Henk?
Yeah, I can comment on that. I know that in the major producing countries, there are certain national organizations and governmental organizations who finance research to improve resistance of diseases or better keeping on the color. They do without being genetically modified, of course, but there is a lot of research in USA, in Canada. There is less research in Europe. There is hardly no research in Turkey, for example. But yeah, there are absolutely countries which are constantly developing seeds. From one year to another, for example, there's a constant renewal of lentil varieties from Canada. But it's majority. It's these kind of origins which have the financial power, I think, and also the will to promote their export business.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I can see some comments coming in. Let's say, like Ethiopia, they're exporting a lot. Like, what are they doing right? Is a question coming in. I can see in Zambia the key barriers are EU certification, commercialization, partnerships to scale up. In Ethiopia, cost of production and local price, but the international price is really static. I can see from Ismael, we have access to commodities from the source, but the main challenge is price variety, and we couldn't find the right peoples to present our commodities. Interesting, that needs, I think, more of transparency as well. Adaku is asking, how do we know certification requirements? Michelle, maybe you can answer that. Like, how can our exporters know and where to find where they need to comply with?
Well, luckily we have the CBI website with all the market studies in which we list a lot of different certifications which are important for this sector. Well, if you talk about food safety, this is your basic door opener. Then you talk about BRC, you talk about IFS. Those are types of certifications that would be recommendable. ISO 22000 is another one. Different markets can have different preferences in food safety certifications, but these main ones are generally widely accepted. Yeah.
No, thank you. For everyone, I see a lot of comments coming in, which are very helpful because we might considering a program in the future. If you write a comment, can you please write down your country in front of it so we understand which country is facing which challenges as well. Great. So there's still room for you to write down your challenges. For instance, Shashilivana is saying finding a customer is the main barrier. There's market access challenges. Very good. So maybe Michel, can we go to the next slide? So here you can also see a summary of the different, let's say, challenges. On the one hand, there are really challenges for market development. So I can see already your constraints for trade on tariffs and fees. I can see a challenge in quality from a couple of your countries, like consistency of color and seasonal supply, low technologies. Positively, you can see on the side, like there's a growing global demand. Challenges I can also see in adding value. I can see a lot of, let's say, bulk is produced and exported, but limited value is added in your countries, limited investment capital in your sectors. I can also see a comment coming in from Jacques. It's about Turkey, I think, interesting as well. Like the seed systems is something that also needs to be developed to really give the boost of the production. And sustainability, there's limited budget for breeding and research. There's limited attention to living income, even though we could hear from Mark really sharing that they are looking and they have customers are looking for new certification. So I can see there's quite some bottlenecks here. Could you go to next slide, Michel, because we still have a question for people. We're also very interested to know, let's say, what are the strengths of your country? So if you could write down in the chat box your name of your country, and maybe you could share that you have really good red kidneys, or maybe you have a government who's investing in new machines, or maybe you have already organic supply, or you have machines. So we're also very keen to hear already what you have in your countries regarding pulses.
It would also be interesting, of course, to Henk and Mark to see what's out there.
Michel, could you repeat it? What is your question to Mark?
This should also be interesting to Henk and to Mark to see what products are out there and what strengths are out there from the participants. I think for them it's interesting to see and hear that.
Yeah, so I can see that Adaku is mentioning in Nigeria we have a large supply of black-eyed beans. I can see in Isaias from Ethiopia the strength that we have a diversity of beans growing in the area during 2 rain seasons and irrigated farming. Excellent. Isaias also mentioning the produce come from fragmented smallholders, and that makes it difficult for the right amount. Yeah, very well. I could also see there's some people from Uganda on the line. Maybe I'm keen to hear from you as well. There were people from other countries, so I'm really looking a bit for this diverse profile. Maybe from India, if you're making maybe research in new pulses with some maybe drought resistance. Also keen to hear what is already happening in your sectors. So you can use the question pane or the chat pane. I can see that the questions are coming in. And we're also very interested to hear if there's already some projects of things ongoing to support specifically women. We can see a lot of women are working in the pulse sector. Is there any work going on? Alfred is saying we have a pre-cleaner dryer. Alfred, could you mention from which country you are? Be great to understand. So you say we have pre-cleaner, dryer, storage silos, and color sorters for quality assurance, and we are ISO certified. I think that's wonderful already to see. Okay, Uganda, yes, very good to know. We can see from India as the best climate condition to grow all different varieties. Thank you. I can see Ethiopia coming in. I could still see a question coming in early on about organic, where there was the question if organic yield is much lower than a conventional production. Maybe Mark, if you're still on the line, could you share something more about the production of organic versus conventional? Like, is it much lower, or is it actually gaining the longer you grow the organic?
I'm not really aware about the difference with conventional, but what I can say is that because of the fact that pesticides cannot be used, it sometimes is harder to control for suppliers to get the maximum yield that they want to, because for example, some parts of the crop have to be destroyed because of let's say rodents or insecticides. So yeah, I think in when you should be really experienced in organic to reach the same levels as conventional. But I don't know the exact numbers. It's something I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be interested to know a little bit more about the premium for organic, because sometimes the price for organic is quite close to the conventional. And you know, if it's interesting enough for suppliers to switch to organic cultivation.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Sorry, maybe it's good to say something about the premium for organic as well, because it's sometimes the price for organic is quite close to the conventional price, but of course the production costs are often higher. So maybe you can say something about that. Is it really interesting to switch to organic farming?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right with that, but also looking at the fact that more customers and also companies are asking for organic. I think apart from the price, it's also something about reaching that demand. I don't know what the future will bring, but let's say that this trend or that this trend is going on like this, then I think also in order to get the right sales, you also should offer organic. So I think it's not only about the price, in my opinion.
I think a good point indeed. Like, of course, like currently premiums are still, let's say, giving the boost for organic production. However, of course, also in the Green Deal, that we're really striving that actually organic should be the new price actually as well. So there will be less price differentiation in the future.
Correct.
Great. Yeah. I can see very good, let's say, comments coming in. That Jacques is saying the rotation of pulses with cereals is key. I can see from different countries, Gensep is saying, and from Ethiopia, there is a processing machine, use of female laborers. I think it's very, very helpful that we indeed can see what is all happening. We're nearly going to the end of this this webinar, so maybe Misha, if you could still share maybe the one of the final slides. So again, the floor is open to give your suggestions, like if CBI is aiming to start a new program, what will be your suggestions? And is it something that maybe we could do for the region, that we say if there's pulses corridors, maybe we could start a big research on right varieties, or maybe promote that red kidneys from Uganda and that region are very good quality. So this is very open to you to give any suggestions to CBI. So please write down in the chat. And I think then we can leave it here. I really want to thank Michel for providing us with a lot of market intelligence. We will publish also your research on the website. There is already a lot of research done by yourself. So thank you very much, Michel, for joining us. And I also want to thank Mark and Henk for giving your insights. I always appreciate it if the private sector is on board and to show the real examples of how you procure your pulses. And we're very keen to hear more about your journey, of course. Like I think organic is a very interesting journey, indeed, to become mainstream maybe more in the future. And Henk as well, like you work in so many countries, so I'm keen to see which country will be added to your list.
You're most welcome, Luca. It was a pleasure being present in this webinar.
Excellent, thank you. And for everyone, I can see some great answers coming in. So I can see commercialization is important approach, looking for partners. Maybe a platform is written down, a platform for pulses markets in the EU. Arthur, my colleague's interest, I would be interested in pulses close to Europe, Northern Africa, taking into account less transport CO2 footprints. I can read yellow beans is popular bean. So yeah, let's give a few more minutes before we close our webinar. And of course, you will receive this PowerPoint. You will receive a summary of all the answers, and you can still be in touch with us to give us your suggestions. I can also hear suggestions that CBI can help in formal market entry from Zambia. I can see CBI can give more insights, indications, what are the best crops to grow, and the supply and the region to assist newcomers. Very good. Excellent. Now,
Can
I
I
love
add
all
some?
these responses. Yes,
Sorry,
please. Yeah.
we have been talking a lot about the technical aspects and the legal aspects, but I think what's also very important are the moral aspects of exporters and importers, of course. And I mean to say that importers usually are people which are there for several decades, and they have factories and they have delivery dates to respect and all that. And I think that above all, they are looking for reliable and trustworthy business partners on which they can rely. And that means that in all circumstances, an exporter, after a contract has been done, is expected to keep his obligations the same way any buyer, any importer is kept to keep his obligation to pay. So, and I think that is very important, and that I feel that there is still some reluctance within European countries to deal with African exporters, because between brackets they should be less trustworthy. And I really would like to take that part away from the importers in Europe, because okay, my experience is I deal with certain African exporters which are really excellent, and I think it is something in which all exporters should really take into their mind, that this is a very important part to keep obligations after they signed an export contract. I mean to say that there is always a price fluctuation possible, and we see that there are always, if the market goes way up compared to the moment that the contract has been signed, there is always a certain tendency of certain exporters to try to come out under of the contract, and that is something which which importers in Europe, they really, any importer by the way, they cannot use a counterparty like that. So it's just important to be trustworthy and keep your obligations.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's a very valid point. It's indeed the trust, responsiveness that you are looking for, and really building this relationship. So yeah, excellent points. Yeah. Well, I think with that note, I think I would like to close this session. Again, I really love all the reactions that you are sharing with us, because it can really help me and my colleagues to really design a good program. And yeah, let's stay in touch, and please go to our website where you really can find some information, and we will further think through how we can support the pulse sector. To my opinion, I see the pulse sector as a growing industry. It's food for the future, where we are really can find where we can support and boost your trade, either regionally or maybe even to the EU. But let's see, yeah, where we can design our project. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.